I want to hear, why can insomnia creep back? And I called it, creep back, and sound a little bit like, there's a little bit triggering wording there, but it's because that's, how most people ask me this question, like, how can it creep back like this? And so to understand that, we need to see that insomnia happens like from the very get-go when we inadvertently develop a habit of trying to control sleep. And it is, of course, inadvertently. None of us, intentionally go like, oh, I'm going to create insomnia for myself. And, I'm going to do that by trying to force myself to sleep by doing all these things. But inadvertent doesn't mean that it's not, in retrospect, quite obvious. We can see that, oh, yeah, I had a health scare, or I took some antibiotics, or I became mom, and that was a stressful time. And it's normal that I didn't sleep that time, but it was actually myself trying to control it that it ultimately led to me having insomnia. We can see that quite clearly. And then when we do see this clearly, we become aware and we leave all these sleep efforts. We don't try to control sleep anymore. We sleep well. But here comes the but, especially if the struggle with sleep was really intense, and perhaps to some degree, if it happened over a period of time as well, there can be this residual habits, the brain can have been in this kind of safety mode for such a long time that it can have, created these kind of like subconscious habits of trying to control sleep. And these can kick in without us taking note of them. So if you imagine that, if someone has like left the intense struggle with insomnia, and, they're living their lives, and then, they stop, we stop splashing our face with cold water in the evening. I remember this one because somebody told me about the specific one. They noticed that after brushing their teeth, they no longer splash their face with cold water in the evening, just because, it's cold and it's not nice to be cold. And so maybe we do that, and maybe we don't go out so much in the evening anymore because we realize like, I'm more of an introvert actually. That's, that's how I prefer things. But I did, we do join a Tai Chi group because, I've always been interested in that. It can be a nice thing to do. And then sort of out of the blue, we realize, oh my gosh, we have insomnia again. And it kind of happened gradually and slowly. Like, how does this happen? And here, it may be quite obvious to you what I'm trying to get at here, but it is that these efforts, these sleep efforts can slowly build up without us being fully conscious of it. When we're not splashing our face with cold water after, brushing our teeth in the evening, it was actually because we were afraid that was going to alert us and that we were not going to sleep. When we started like not going out in the evening to see friends, it was similarly because we thought that was going to be too engaging and maybe we wouldn't sleep. And when we rejoined that Tai Chi group, we were actually trying to make ourselves more calm so that we would sleep better. And it can be tricky because it can seem like, it can look like, oh, insomnia is a thing. It has like a life of its own, and it can creep back upon us, and we need to manage the insomnia. But then we see we're trying to control things that we cannot control again, which is tricky. And it's not like this. In reality, it is our safety-minded brain that has a life of its own, which it's supposed to have. Like, that's what it was designed for. But sometimes it's placed this undercover agent thing. Like it goes into like undercover mode and does things without us being fully conscious. And it sort of tries to protect us against this imagined villain. And then things become really tricky because our efforts actually creep back, and then we have more trouble sleeping again. And the thing is that I love to point out is that insomnia actually requires effort. It is an absolute requirement that we do something to try to stop it, versus sleep. Peaceful sleep requires nothing. So knowing this, we can see that insomnia actually can't really creep back unless our efforts creep back. That's a requirement for it. And now the same client, actually, one of my clients who was, one of the persons who asked me about like stomach creeping back, also pointed me out to this distraction paradox. She said that she had noticed that after a period of time where she was quite busy, she had actually seen some of these efforts sneak back, if you will. And the paradox here is that typically, most commonly when we are busy, engaged, we have obligations, things that take our attention in a certain direction, can actually be helpful, because we see that when our attention is going in, some type of focused direction, we sleep easier automatically because attention is shifted away from sleep and we're not trying so much to sleep anymore. But this is what this client noticed. Being busy, perhaps particularly in a time period where, like, we're not struggling like with insomnia so much anymore. We've kind of left this struggle, but now we're busy, and now we're actually not paying attention to these little efforts creeping back in again, right? So being busy can actually lead to us not paying attention to these kind of undercover efforts adding up. And then we can find ourselves like being surprised, like, oh, I have some more struggle again. But I hope it's clear why this happens. So now we can go to the final point here, which is like, how do we find peaceful sleep again? And, the answer, of course, is the same as when we had insomnia the first time. Is like seeing the efforts and leaving the efforts lead to peaceful sleep. But, to continue this kind of analogy of the undercover agent, we can see that we know that from like movies and popular culture that when an undercover agent, when the cover is blown up, like, when their identity is revealed, they can't work in the shadows anymore. They're kind of like, they can't do anything. And I think it's the same thing kind of internally here, that when we deploy awareness and honesty, that keeps us from quote unquote mindlessly adding effort and recreating insomnia. In other words, when we've seen things getting easier, and we know about what we just talked about this in this particular video right here, then when we find ourselves kind of like not splashing our face with cold water in the evening again, we can be like, oh, wait a minute, maybe there's a reason I'm not doing this anymore. And we deploy that awareness, and we're honest, kind of like we're truly seeing what we're doing for what it is, and then automatically this automatically leads to less effort, because when the efforts are really tricky, when they're secret, that's when they can kind of pile up, add up. But when we are aware of them, that automatically teaches that automatically leads to the brain kind of abandoning them, because the brain sees what's going on, and it, of course, doesn't want us to struggle. So, and then with that effort, of course, peaceful sleep happens by itself. So yeah, I hope this was valuable to you and brought something new to you. And as always, let me know in the comment section what you thought. And also, if you are finding yourself on the path where you want to be to peaceful sleep, where you feel like yourself again, you live the life you want to live, that is wonderful. Please let us know. But if things are tricky, if it's hard to, piece together the puzzle and find yourself on that path to peaceful sleep, then please head over to our website and check out our coaching options. And if you decide to join, then we can't wait to see you on the inside. With that said, you have a beautiful rest of your day, and look forward to having you back soon. Bye for now.